Bowen Byram, Jamie Drysdale, Sandine. Where should you draft these guys in your Dynasty startup drafts? Tune in to find out as we drop the puck.
Hunter McDavid, Draisaitl scores!
Pasternak, Marchand, he'll drag it right in for a chance.
Look at the ball. He dancing it.
Holy mackerel! What a save! Made by Marc-Andre Fleury.
Unbelievable by Austin Matthews. A complete turnaround.
We're going to Boston, baby!
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Fantasy Hockey Bucks podcast. I'm here, your host, Antonio Capos, along with co-host Ben Rutledge. How are you doing, bud?
I'm doing good. I'd just like to start off this episode quickly saying that this will be my last one for July. I'll be away on a business trip overseas, and I won't be able to attend our recordings. And so yeah, so I'll after this one, I'll see you guys then.
Just to follow up to that, for the remaining 3 episodes this month, we will be introducing a new special guest that you will be meeting next episode, obviously. We'll be giving him a full introduction. But for now, just know that over the next couple weeks, we're just going to be basically releasing our top 250 rankings, talking about, I think this week is going to be the last week that Ben and I go over and actually talk about our rankings. But next week, we're going to be talking about mock draft, and then likely just going to be covering any re-signings that happen before the NHL draft over the weeks to come.
All right. With that,
before we start the episode, we just want to offer our condolences for David Pasternak and the whole situation that's been happening with his family. Obviously, our full support and condolences.
yeah, we just like to say the full hockey community is there for you, Pasternak, and hope you're able to get through these tough times. All right, so
moving on with our episode, we are on the second part of our expansion draft series, where we are drafting head-to-head as if there were 2 expansion teams instead of just the Kraken. As you may remember, we are now on the Canadiens. We just finished with the Minnesota Wild, and we are going in alphabetical order of the city names of NHL teams.
All right, Antonio, start us off with your pick for the Montreal Canadiens.
Okay. What am I looking at here? Probably want to take a winger here, so I think I'm gonna take. I really like what Jake Evans has been doing. I know he's coming off that injury from Scheifele, but I'm gonna take him, I think.
Well, that was my pick, so that's fun. All right, so I'll take Cale Fleury, just kind of young defenseman. Probably won't play, but good prospect overall. All right, now for my pick of the New Jersey Devils, probably looking to take a forward here. Sorry, this is Nashville Predators. That is my bad. I'll take Colton Sissons.
Okay, I'll take Luke Kunin. Yeah, so for the Devils, let's see. This is another terrible team. I can't even be bothered. I think I'll take Nate Sebastian.
All right.
Nate Bastian, rather.
I will take Nick Merkley. He's an RFA this year.
Alrighty, then moving on to the Islanders. It's your first pick.
All right, I will take JGP.
Okay. I'm gonna take Kiefer Bellows here.
Okay, your pick for the Rangers now.
Yes, I will take Anthony D'Angelo. I know there's a bit of controversy around that, but
Yeah, I agree. I think it's just a good flyer pick. Get him in a new organization. Yeah. All right, so I will take then.
come on, Ben. You know you want to take the GOAT.
I'll take
Jack
Brett Howden.
Johnson.
No, I think I'll pass on Jack Johnson. You know, don't
Bro, are
think
you
it's
sure,
worth
bro?
don't think it's worth
The
the
moving
GOAT.
pylon, bro.
I know. The GOAT. I'll take Brett Howden.
Brett Howden. All right. I see. Your pick for the Sens?
Oh, this is easy. I'll go Nick Paul.
Really? I think I'm gonna take Abramov here.
Okay. Go
All right,
pick first.
Flyers. I'll take I'm kind of between two guys right now. I guess I'll take Obe Kubel.
Okay, I'll take JVR.
Really, you're gonna take that $7 million contract?
Got to reach the minimum.
That's true. I mean, we still do got like 7
All right,
seasons left.
this one's easy for me. I'll take Jared McCann.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's a good pick. I might look for like a identity player here. I think I'll go with Jankowski here. Running low in left wingers. All right, the Sharks. It's my pick, right?
Yeah.
I'll take Maloshe.
All right, and I'll take Balsers.
All right, that's pretty quick. Moving on to the Blues.
And this one,
Oh my lord.
I'll take Vince Dunn.
Yeah, I saw that and I was like, I'll take Sammy Blaze, actually. I like that pick a lot.
All right, your pick.
For Tampa. Yikes, that contract on Tyler Johnson's not that pretty, huh?
It is not.
How many teams do we have left? 5? Okay, I'll reach the minimum. That's fine. Gotta go with the gem, Mal Smith. No, I'm just kidding. It's a little inside joke there. We like playing Chell. And he
Chell 20, Antonio took him, and he became like an 88 overall.
yeah, he was like 20-year-old prospect or 20 like he was 26. I claimed him off waivers and I started playing him on my second line as a joke. And then he ended up getting a 60-point season, his first season with me. Then it went up to like 75 with like 30 goals and he just became insane.
All right, ring it in here, bud.
I'm gonna take Barry Boulay, I think. Actually, yeah, I'll take Barry Boulay.
All right, and I'll take Chernak.
Okay, that's a good pick, yeah. All right. Toronto Maple Leafs. Who are you taking?
I'm taking Nick Foligno.
Taking Nick Foligno. Okay. I thought you were gonna go Justin Hall there. Not gonna lie. Who do I take?
There is actually a good goalie available. I just realized that now.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I gotta go Jack Campbell here.
In real life, let's just keep in mind, everyone, that he will be their goalie protected. But
yeah,
not in quick protect, so That's why Antonio gets him. All right. So your pick first now.
Who do I take here? Yikes. There's no clear pick, really.
I agree.
Like, I don't want anybody.
I know. It's difficult. Just pick someone. Louis Eriksson, of course. Take that $6 million cap rate.
No, I think I'm actually gonna go for. I didn't know that. I guess I take Antoine Roussel.
I'll take Matthew Highmore.
All right. Your first pick here for Washington.
I'll take Vanacek.
Oh, that's a good pick there. I really like that pick for you. I'll take. I guess I take Chara. No, I'm just kidding. Sorry, I meant to say Daniel Sprong. I was thinking Chara. I meant to say Daniel Sprong. Oh my God, Big Z, love you. Used to be Bruins captain, but sorry, bud. I'm not taking you in any expansion draft anytime soon. Oh, it's too funny. All right, Winnipeg. I think it's my first pick here, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'll take Sammy Niku.
All right, I will take Adam Lowry. All right, so I actually do have to go back and find one more contract because I only have 19 of the 20 needed.
Yes, I have 18 of the 20 needed.
So instead of Nick Merkley, I'll take PK Subban, and that finishes me off.
Instead of Mark Jankowski, I'm gonna take Sam Lafferty, right? And then instead of Vitaly Abramov, I'll go for Josh Brown. And that brings me over the minimum cap, gives me 20 of 20, 2021, 22 contracts, and it concludes my draft.
All right, so quickly, I'll go in and break down my team, and then Antonio will do the same for his. So my star players that would be of fantasy relevance would be Taylor Hall, John Gabriel Pageau, Jared McCann, James Van Riemsdyk, Nick Foligno. Then on defense, it would be Devon Taves, Chris Tanev, PK Subban, and really all three of my goalies, Khudobin, Vanacek, and Nedeljkovic would all be very solid options. Now, of my team who I think would break out, I think Nick Paul would have a big breakout. Michael Bunting as well would break out. And I think lastly, Josh Archibald would break out. So say that obviously the expansion draft team would be a bit better than this, but say it went very similar to this. I think guys to look out for. I think you should bump JVR, JGP value. McCann, right now we have him as a top 100 player. He would probably stay that. Nick Foligno would be starting to push that top 150. Taylor Hall right now we have in the 70s, and I would say probably drops a bit just because he's playing with much less star power. But yeah, Nick Paul, Josh Archibald, Michael Bunting would be three names that I think are very reasonable, could be taken, and are names that you should watch out for the back end of your draft. As for forward on defense, I think obviously Devon Taves would be that number one defenseman. But I think if the draft were to go very similar to this, it would be probably Vince Dunn, Chris Tanev. I would probably see a resurgence in PK Subban, I think. Yeah, that would probably be the way that it would go. And then, yeah, Nedeljkovic and Khudobin would probably be the two goalies, with Vanacek as the third. I think that this team would probably look to flip Khudobin. But yeah, overall, those are just some of the names to watch out for. We'll cover it more as it leads up to the actual expansion draft, but on to you, Antonio.
For my team, I chose to go a little bit more young. So like I have, I think 1 30-year-old on my whole team. In Antoine Roussel, just because I wanted to get a one veteran in at least. But I think names that are more important are Sam Bennett, who, as you saw at the end of the year this year, was starting to rack up some points, and I think that he'd likely probably out of my forward group end up being that first liner. Mind you, with all the cap space, I have $30 million in cap space, so likely they would be chasing after somebody in free agency, or even trying to trade prospects to get in some young fresh blood. But I think, yeah, players of note on my offense would be Sam Bennett. Jake Evans also in the playoffs has looked pretty good, but I think he would probably slot in on that second line on the right wing. Just looking at everything, Sammy Blake. My first line would likely be, my first line would be some combination of like Grigorenko, Bennett, and Sammy Blaze. Sammy Blaze and Bennett being like the two guys that are probably going to be fantasy relevance. But really my defense is where I become kind of stacked, where I have like Matt Dumba, Brady Skay, Ryan Graves, and then kind of dips off to like B-level players like Jeremy Lazon, Sammy Niku. But I think that on my defense, Brady Skay and Matt Dumba would definitely be fantasy ads. And then this team would likely look to trade some of their more depth defensemen like Maloshe, Shillington to try and get in more offensive power. And then obviously, since I have Jack Campbell, he'd be a decent pickup considering what he's done this year. However, since this is a new team and it likely won't be quite as good as that Vegas team that we saw in their first year, 2017-18, it's probably not a good idea to pick up a goalie on one of the less established teams in the league.
All right, so now moving on to one quick thing before we move into the awards finalists. We are recording this Tuesday night as I leave tomorrow morning, but so all the awards were announced tonight. But quickly, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins signs a 8-year, $5.1 million extension with the Edmonton Oilers, carrying him until he is 36 to 37 years old. Now, I think right now for Edmonton, this is a good contract. You're paying Nuge $5 million. He is a top six forward. That's probably right around what I think he's worth. Maybe a bit more, maybe about 5.5.
Yeah, I think they're getting a bit like of a discount on him right now.
But I
he's
think
like later in his career, like he's going to be 37 on this contract, and he's just not going to be worth that money at all.
But I think for now, for fantasy relevance, this helps Nuge because it brings his cap hit down, and I think $1 million for the Oilers from what it was last year. So that just allows them to bring in extra top six help for him. And I think he'll still be on that number one power play. So that way he'll just have more support on his lines that should boost his point production. I think he's right now sitting in our rankings just outside the top 100. I think even with this contract extension, that's still where he sits. But he is just someone to keep an eye on as the year starts to go on. You maybe want to pick him up there around 12, be like, okay, this is probably good value, especially with his now with Edmonton possibly building a much better team. This could definitely help him. It could also hurt him, so I'd still watch to see that, but I would be surprised if they're able to move him out of their top six, meaning they brought in that much talent. That's just my thoughts. Antonio, what are your thoughts before we get on to the award winners?
Yeah, I'm always like hesitant to pick up players that have just signed a contract because, historically there have been those types of players that once, they're working, trying to get that next paycheck. And then, they get the big long extension and they kind of just stop working for it and they kind of just slow down. So I really like having players the year they are going to get their extension, last year their contract, because they're going to be playing for that next contract.
But the thing is, A, they're pros, for one, and for two, he's playing with Connor McDavid, so, pretty big upside there.
Yeah, obviously. Anybody that plays with Connor McDavid is probably going to be fantasy addable.
All right.
Definitely.
Tying that McDavid point in, McDavid wins the Ted Lindsay and Hart Memorial Trophy to pair that with the Art Ross Trophy he took when the regular season ended. Not much surprise there. I thought maybe Matthews had a shot for Lindsay just because the players are voting and the players know how hard it is to score goals, but Matthews finished second in both the Hart and Lindsay voting. Doesn't surprise me too much. Antonio, what are your thoughts on those two?
Yeah, I think it was obviously going to be those two guys from the start. Obviously McKinnon was in conversation, but McDavid got 100 points. Matthews was on like 60 goal pace or something, like over that.
Yeah, he had 41 goals.
Just insane stats. Whereas McKinnon really like nothing surprising. Like Matthews shocked us. McDavid, we were like, is he going to be able to hit 100? And he like surpassed that. So yeah, I think he's definitely deserving. You know me, I'm a Bruins fan, and I was rallying for Marchand to get that number 3 finals pick.
I think he'll definitely probably finish top 5. I think in overall
he was fifth.
The votes typically released the day after the awards come out, so I'd be interested to see.
They were released. They were released.
I didn't see. Do you know?
Yeah, Marchand was released as the number 5 for the Hart.
Who's 4? Draisaitl?
I'm not sure. I didn't actually take a look at it yet.
But yeah, it becomes more.
I know that they're doing just like the NBA. They're doing like all-star teams because there wasn't actually an all-star game. So the first all-star team was
right wing, and Matthews got first team right wing, and Matthews got second team center just because, well, hard to beat McDavid.
Yeah, so the first team was Marchand, McDavid, Marner,
Fox McCarr, correct?
I believe
and
so.
Fleury.
Yeah. McAvoy finished 5th in Norris Trophy rankings. Again, I think in my opinion, I was talking to this about with Ben a little bit earlier, but I think that they have to break down their defense awards because the Norris tends to just go to the defenseman with the most points in a year. Like, now, obviously, yes.
Tying this in just so everyone knows, the winner was Adam Fox. But I think, Antonio, what you're more referring to is if you actually look at all metrics other than points, Victor Hedman should not have been in the finalists.
Yeah, there's that. And then also, like, look, I think they should divide it into two or three separate awards for defensemen.
2.
1? No. I think 3 possibly. 1 should be for the best defensive defenseman. 2 should be for the best offensive defenseman. And 3 should be for the best overall. And I feel like the Norris it's supposed to be for the best overall, but it ends up leaning more towards offense than defense.
What I think they should do is basically, you know how they have the Art Ross for the most points? I think they should do something similar to that, but for the most points for defensemen, it's not like a finalist award. It's just whoever has that wins it.
Yeah.
And then I think they should have the Norris Trophy, but change the Norris Trophy voting because they now have this points award. Change it to basically the most valuable defenseman, not like just two-way, like overall, which if you were to do that would probably result in like a Fox, McCarr, McAvoy, Pellick, Brody. Obviously Brody's a bit different, and there's a bit of bias as I'm a Leafs fan, but those are kind of names you'd see over a guy like Victor Hedman, John Carlson, Alex Pietrangelo, guys who are just offense.
Or like Tyson Barrie, like.
Yeah, exactly.
These guys don't deserve to be like up there with things like these. I know. Like Tyson Barrie's not a top 10 defenseman, but he scores in the top 5 for defense.
Exactly,
which automatically gets him the votes, right? So yeah, I definitely think they need to change the voting, but you know, I'm still pretty happy with how the votings went.
I think to me. All right, the biggest surprise was Fleury winning the Vezina. I thought it should have gone to Grubauer just because what terrific season he had.
Yeah.
But that's the only one that I really would have changed. And then Kaprizov wins the Calder. Not surprising. I just think, as we discussed in one of our earliest episodes, there should just be like you have 3 years or 4 years after you're drafted. And then once you're past that, you can still – that would still count as your rookie year, but you can't be up for the Calder, I think. Because
Yeah.
in a normal year, Jason Robertson, who's 21 years old, I believe, or 20, he wins that. And so it's just because Kaprizov comes in as a 25-year-old after playing pro for 3 or 4 years in the KHL. Obviously, he's probably going to win it.
Yeah. I think it's just really disappointing, honestly. Like, even if it's just like, your entry contract, how it's like the first 3 years from your draft class, I think that's really what it should be. Like if, like you said, if you're over 22, I don't think you should be winning the Calder Trophy because it's just unfair at that point.
Now, to the ozone.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Ozone. Today, there's about only one topic I can cover, and that is the Stanley Cup with the Lightning and the Canadiens. And as of recording this, only 2 games have happened, and I'm going to let you know what's going on. So, game 1, it was a pretty dominating victory, 5-1 for the Lightning. Canadiens couldn't even get 20 shots on net, 19 shots for the Canadiens. A really, really rough start to the series. But they bounced back. I do believe they bounced back. That first period of Game 2 was scoreless. It looked to be in the favor of the Canadiens. It seemed like they were gaining a bit of momentum. Then, second period, Lightning take a 1-goal lead. It was 2-1. Then in that third period, the Canadiens just couldn't score. It didn't matter how many chances, how many shots. They could not get the puck past Vasilevsky. Vasilevsky had 42 saves that game. 42 saves on 43 shots. I have never seen a game like that, especially a Stanley Cup game. Like, oh my God. And the Lightning only with 23 shots and 3 goals, but it's just so ironic because the Canadiens have Price, who was looking like the best goalie in the playoffs, and on so many occasions, Price could be outshot and would just will his team to victory because he was just that good. And now, Price facing a goalie who willed his team to victory because he was just playing that good. Vasilevsky, it looked like he priced the way he just was unstoppable, just was not letting anything by. I have truly never seen anything like that. That was so impressive. But not only that, Price didn't even play that great. 3 goals on 23 shots, that's not that good. We know Price can do much better than that, especially in the Stanley Cup. You got to play better than that. Obviously, the loss isn't Price's fault, but we just know he can play better. And it's just so tough to win a game like this. But we've seen, in the past with the Knights and the Avalanche. Avalanche took a 2-0 lead, and Game 2 played roughly the same as this. We saw the Avalanche get completely outshot, but still scrape their way to a win. This one wasn't exactly scraped, but you know what I'm saying. And then Vegas proceeded to just sweep the series and win 4 games straight. I'm not saying that's what Montreal is going to do. I'm just saying they could certainly take Game 3 because they just proved that they could play an entire game and outplay the Lightning. So I could definitely see the Canadiens taking Game 3 because they just proved that they can outplay the Lightning because Vasilevsky, 97, 98% save percentage. That's just incredible. But obviously, you're not putting up numbers like that for a full series. So the Canadiens could certainly come back and win Game 3. It would be a huge game for them. It's a must-win for Montreal, obviously. But I don't really have a favorite for this series for who I would like to win. I just want to see some competitive Stanley Cup hockey. Really isn't up to me. I could care less, really, but I guess I would like to see, Montreal win Game 3 and have a competitive series. But, that's just my take. Thank you, guys.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back from the Ozone Village. Now we're going to be moving on to our final segment where we talk about where you should take prospects in a dynasty league in drafts. So Ben, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, sure. So basically, the initial strategy for dynasty startup drafts is I wouldn't take a prospect in the top 100. Those are your identity players. Those are your players that you want to have for term, ideally. Maybe 1 or 2 of them will be over 30. But those are the guys that you want who are young and your guys for the future. So I wouldn't necessarily take a prospect who won't make that big of an impact in year one. For probably the earliest prospect I would take is, I guess, in our prospect rankings, we have Cole Caulfield. I'm using air quotes. You obviously can't see me, but I'm using air quotes because at this point he's really past that prospect range. And so Antonio has him higher than I do. I think Antonio has him in round 8. I have him around 10. But yeah, excluding him, I'd say you really would start to think about prospects from round 12 on. I have Trevor Zegras in our mock draft in round 12. That's the earliest I'd take a prospect, and that's only because I'm insanely high on Zegras. Otherwise, I think you kind of take them, you sprinkle them throughout the kind of mid to late teen rounds, and then in the 20s, I think is when you take them. You can also, in an app like Fantrax, where they have minor league spots, you can also like leave some prospects until the very end and just add them. And so that way you have those still first year impact players, and you don't really have to waste draft capital. Granted, in a dynasty startup draft, you have a lot of draft capital, so taking a prospect is fine. This is kind of my stance. And Tony, do you have anything to add?
No, not really. I just want to also add that I know somebody in our draft actually took this strategy where they knew they had a later round pick, like, general snake draft. So basically, if you draft like 10th, you also get the 11th pick. But in most dynasty leagues, that means that in the rookie draft, which is like where you pick prospects coming in this year, you get the first pick if you had the last pick. You know what I mean? So basically, his strategy was to draft for basically this year. He basically just he drafted Marchand in the first round, and then from there kind of just drafted for this year, just trying to win this year, and knowing that he had like a quality prospect that he could like build back around because he's going to have that high pick in the rookie draft. So I think that's an interesting take. Also, because he didn't actually end up taking any prospects during the actual draft.
Yeah, as well. I think that's actually a decent strategy, especially since, well, in a couple years' time we have Connor Bedard coming up, who's been called Connor McDavid 2.0. So taking the strategy of win now, sell off, rebuild, get bad, get Bedard, and then move up is also a good strategy, I think.
Yeah. Personally, I kind of went for more just like.
Yeah, we took the same strategy.
We both kind of went young win now, which I think everybody wants to do, but like, it's kind of really hard to execute if you do it wrong. Like if you pick the wrong players that are like end up busting, then your team's kind of done now, and like the future's not necessarily all that bright.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's a really risky strategy. I think that probably the ideal strategy is kind of draft like the strategy for kind of 2 to 3 years of possibly dominating your league is draft people between 26 and 28 years old who are known
proven
quality
players.
NHL players. Exactly. That's the safest strategy. Then there's also the pure win now strategy, which also isn't bad, especially given that fact that Bedard's up soon. But
and then there's also the strategy where you just go for like every young players all around.
True, just rebuild right away.
Which I personally, I'm too impatient to do that, but it's actually a very good strategy if you can execute it properly. Like say you take somebody like who's 23 in the first round, and then you can end up like trading them for like to some you can end up trading like your third round pick. Say that's like somebody that ends up being a little bit older, you can end up trading them for like prospect picks in years to come, plus like other prospects around the league, and it can be a very solid way to go.
I agree. I think really depends on your draft goes early. Like the first kind of 2 or 3 picks will be the same regardless. Like you'll end up with mid-20s really good players, and then I think it's the rounds after that will determine where you go. I think obviously everyone wants to come and be like, yeah, I'm going to draft a win now team, a win 5 years team, but that's like the hardest strategy to execute. And so I also think it depends where you pick. The easiest spot to put this plan in action is if you pick in the middle rounds, because then you're always in the middle of each round, and so sorry, in the middle like number of picks, then you're always in the middle, and so you're able to get those players. You don't have to wait or reach on players, and so I think that would probably be the best spot. And then if you're picking early, I would probably go win now, and if you're picking late, I'd go win in the future. Just generally, obviously, it
Yeah, I
depends
mean,
on
it
people
really
fall.
depends on like the draft and what picks fall to you. But what the main thing you don't want to do is go into the draft without like an actual plan, and then say you go like you're like, okay, I'll go win now, take Marshawn or like somebody older, and then somebody like young comes up and you're like, actually, I want to do a rebuild. Like that's the worst thing you can do, because then you're basically saying, oh, I'm going to have this old guy on my team, but I still want to rebuild, meaning that I'm going to need to trade. And that basically tells other teams that, like, oh, we can undervalue this player because we know that he needs to get rid of him in order for his strategy to work out. So, like, it's just, you got to have like a strategy set in place after that first round pick, I think, to have an effective draft.
I agree. And this is why Dynasty is so fun, in my opinion, that you feel more like a real GM. You're trading players and you can just get prospects and picks back. But also there's much more strategy, because you can't just be like, all right, I'm just gonna pick the best player that comes up every time. You actually have to pre-plan your picks, and you have to put in a ton of research, which is kind of what we've done for you. So if you go to our website, linked in our bio on Instagram in the link tree, it's labeled website Fantasy Hockey Pucks. We have all of our up-to-date rankings there. If you want to go there, we have everything for you set up. And yeah, our overall rankings are yearly, but also predominantly dynasty overall. Like, we have prospects in there and where you should take them. And so overall, we're not going to talk a ton about where you should take individual players. It's more just the overarching theme of kind of when to take them. There's obviously, in my opinion, I think the easiest strategy to do that I thought I executed well is you take, as we said in earlier our last podcast, you take a couple of defensemen late in the top 100. Then you kind of wait and you build up a very, very good forward core, because people undervalue defensive prospects such as Bowen Byram, Jamie Drysdale, Rasmus Sandin, Noah Dobson. I have all four of those guys in our league, and you can pick them up in late teen rounds, and it'll be like quality value from that position. And so I think that that's really the easiest way to build up a D core, which tends to be the hardest part to build of your team.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Personally, I probably end up taking, I think in those last maybe 5 rounds, especially for Dynasty, I end up taking boomer bust, like 20 to 23-year-olds. Because if you end up getting, like, say even 3 of those picks work out, that can majorly increase the value of those picks and help your team down the road.
100%. And so just as we're beginning to wrap this up, we will each give where we rank kind of the big kind of 5-6 prospects. That being Nick Robertson, Trevor Zegras, Bowen Byram, Jamie Drysdale, and Quentin Byfield, Dylan Cousins. So kind of those, like the I guess Lafreniere and maybe Kratzov, kind of those guys. So for me personally, I have Trevor Zegras in the 13th round, going at pick 124. Also to note, I have Eli Tolvanen at 122 and Tim Stützle at 123. So if you want to kind of include those guys. And then I have Jamie Drysdale in the same round at pick 129. And then I have Rasmus Sandin in the 14th round at pick 132. Bowen Byram at pick 137. Quentin Byfield and Nick Robertson going back-to-back at 146, 147. And finally, Noah Dobson, at 158. That's just his power play value. And then finally, I have Cousins at 162, Lafreniere at 163, and Kravtsov at 166. So these rankings will change based on how they perform kind of early in the season and stuff. But this is generally where, like, roughly where I think you should be taking them and get the best. Take them. And Tony, if you'd like to walk through your rankings just before we wrap up.
Yeah, definitely. Personally, there are some prospects that I really like, and then there's others where I just kind of group them because I feel like they all have like kind of the same boom or bust ability. So for me, obviously I was really high on Caulfield because I think he's already proven himself, even though technically not a prospect anymore. I think he ended up being actually low 7th round for me. Trevor Zegras I had at the end of round 12 at pick 118. 119, just behind Tim Stutzler at 118. I then went a full round of that many prospects and then had Byram, Sandin, Robertson, and Drysdale all like back to back basically in round 14. Like I said, it was kind of grouping them. Like I feel like Byram and Sandin have very similar values. Same with like players like Nick Robertson, Jamie Drysdale. And then I ended up having Quentin Byfield at 143. And yeah, I currently I have my rankings up to 150 up on the website. However, I wanted to take a little bit more time to mull over and check over some stats about who I want to actually have in the later rounds. So I haven't placed players like Dylan Cozens and Lafreniere into my rankings quite yet.
Yeah, that's fine. Obviously, this is just kind of an early. We'll probably have one more podcast released as draft season's coming up on full dynasty strategy. But we just wanted to get one out there about prospects, just because we know this is kind of the hardest part of your dynasty draft is thinking when we should find them, when we should take them. Excuse me. And so that's why this is generally where we think they should be going. And then there's obviously prospects that we covered in our first ever podcast, the prospects podcast. There obviously are some players that you could pick up late, like Marco Rossi, Cole Perfetti, Turcotte, Holtz, Raymond, Brandstrom, Sanderson. But those guys are just, you can get them in the 20s round, and we haven't filled out our rankings to there yet, but you can get them in the 20 or something or so round. And so that's really the best value for them. But you can also pick those guys up in free agency when your draft's over. So that's just for those guys, but we just wanted to cover kind of the Big Ten.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Just a reminder that we did push back our mock draft by 1 week just because we wanted to get this video in before Ben had to leave for his trip. Next week we are going to be going. We will be joined by a guest star. His name is Azim Manzoor. So just be ready for that. We'll give him a proper introduction at the start of next episode. Obviously, thank you for watching. Any final words here, Ben, before we wrap up the video?
I'll see you guys in about a month or so, but I've had a blast doing this podcast and running our Instagram account, and can't wait to be back at it.
Alrighty then. Thank you everybody for listening, and be sure to meet us back here same time next week, same place, when we introduced a new guest and talk about our take on the NHL's mock draft the next time we drop the puck. Thank you everybody.